Man saves lion trapped in well, and what he did next left everyone speechless. The first sound came at dawn, a low, muffled roar rolling across the savannah like thunder from beneath the earth. Elias, a farmer who lived at the edge of the reserve, paused on his morning walk. At first he thought it was the wind playing tricks, but then it came again, broken and heavy, echoing from the direction of the old abandoned well. He hurried closer, weeds crunching beneath his boots, heart beating strangely fast. The well had been dry for years, its stones crumbling, long forgotten by people. Yet as Elias leaned over the rim, his breath caught in his throat. There, at the bottom, half submerged in muddy water, a lion struggled. Its mane, once regal, was matted with dirt and moisture. Paws slapped weakly against the slick stone walls, claws scraping but finding no hold. Each movement sent ripples across the dark pool, each attempt weaker than the last. The sight was almost unthinkable. The king of the savannah reduced to desperation, his strength swallowed by confinement. Elias gripped the rough stone edge tighter, unable to look away. The animal's roars were not filled with dominance. They were laced with exhaustion, the sound of a creature fighting for its life. Then the lion lifted its head, amber eyes catching the faint light above. For a moment, their gazes locked, man above, beast below. Elias expected fury, a snarl, some flash of teeth. Instead, he saw something else entirely, a plea, silent, raw, and unmistakable. His throat tightened. He whispered instinctively, words not meant to be heard but carried by the echoing walls. "Hold on, I see you." The sound of his own voice startled him, but the lion did not react with anger. It only sank back against the wall, chest rising and falling in shallow rhythm. Elias stood there for a long moment, torn between fear and compassion. Stories of lions attacking men filled his childhood, warnings passed down in hushed tones. But this was no hunter. This was a creature trapped in the earth, life slipping through its paws, and somehow trusting him enough to show its weakness. The savannah around them was silent, as if holding its breath. Even the birds had hushed. Dust floated in the pale morning light, suspended like time itself. Elias's hands trembled, but the decision formed in him like a flame. He could not walk away. Not now. The old well, long forgotten, had become the stage for something rare, a meeting of mercy and survival. And in that moment, man and lion were bound by the same fragile truth. Without help, one would not see another sunrise. Elias returned to the well with rope coiled over his shoulder, an old wooden ladder strapped to a cart, and hands that would not stop trembling. The morning sun had grown stronger, baking the earth in heat, yet when he leaned over the rim, the air below was cool and damp. The lion was still there, chest heaving, mane plastered to its skin, paws twitching with every futile attempt to climb the slick walls. The sound of claws against stone echoed up, sharp and desperate. Elias lowered himself to his knees, keeping his movement slow. "Easy. It's all right," he whispered. Though the words were more to steady himself than to calm the beast, the lion turned its head upward, amber eyes dull with exhaustion, but they did not flash with anger. They only watched him. Elias tied knots carefully, his fingers stiff with fear. He lowered the ladder first, the old wood scraping against the sides as it dropped into the water with a dull splash. The lion startled, ears twitching, muscles tightening as though ready to lunge. Elias froze, heart hammering. But then the animal only sagged again, its strength too far gone for violence. The ladder shifted, its rungs bobbing in the water. Elias steadied it with the rope, bracing against the weight. "Take it slow," he murmured, though he knew the lion couldn't understand. But tone mattered more than meaning. The lion hesitated, panting, water dripping from its mane. Then, as if sensing the fragile chance, it lifted a paw and placed it clumsily on the lowest rung. Claws scraped wood, slid, caught again. The sound rang sharp in Elias's ears. He gripped the rope tighter, praying the ladder would hold. Another paw followed, then another. The lion's body heaved upward, muscles quivering with effort. Twice, it slipped, crashing back into the water with a splash that sent droplets flying up the walls. Each time Elias's chest clenched, certain the animal would give up. But each time the lion tried again. Minutes stretched into eternity. The ladder creaked under the weight, the rope cutting into Elias's palms. At last, the great animal dragged itself over the rim. Mud clung to its coat, droplets scattering across the dust as it collapsed onto the ground. Its breaths came ragged and deep, sides expanding and contracting like bellows. Elias scrambled back, giving the lion space. He stood several paces away, body shaking, sweat stinging his eyes. Yet the lion did not attack. It simply lay sprawled on the earth, chest rising, amber eyes half closed in sheer exhaustion. The snare of the well had been broken. The king of the savannah lay free, not through its own strength, but through the fragile rope of human mercy. Around them, the savannah began to stir again. Birds called from the thorn trees. The wind swept dust in lazy spirals, and the hum of insects filled the silence. Yet inside that circle of space, man on one side, lion on the other, there was only stillness. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He had done the impossible. But what came next remained uncertain. The lion lay in the dust, chest heaving, mud dripping from its mane. Elias stood several steps back, rope still clutched. In his hand, the wooden ladder abandoned at the well's edge. His legs trembled, urging him to flee, but something deeper kept him rooted in place. He had pulled a wild beast from death, and the silence that followed felt sacred. Slowly, the lion shifted. Its paws pressed against the earth, testing the ground with cautious weight. The freed muscles trembled, but strength returned in small waves. Elias held his breath, unsure if the animal would bolt into the grass or turn on him. Instead, the lion rose to its feet and stood tall, dust falling from its coat in a golden haze. It turned its massive head toward Elias, amber eyes glowing in the sunlight. No roar came, no snarl, no rush of anger. Only a steady, unblinking gaze that seemed to stretch far beyond predator and prey. Then, in a movement Elias would carry for the rest of his days, the lion stepped closer. Its gait was uneven, still weakened by its ordeal but deliberate. The farmer stiffened, heart hammering, as the beast stopped just a breath away. Warm breath brushed against his arm, carrying the scent of earth and water. The lion lingered there, silent before releasing a long exhale, heavy and low, almost like a sigh. It was not thanks in human words, but in that breath Elias felt a recognition older than language, a bond forged in suffering and mercy. The lion turned then, limping toward the tall grass. Each step was slow but certain, the sun glinting off its mane like threads of fire. Just before the savannah swallowed it, the animal stopped and looked back once more. The gaze was brief, but it seared into Elias's memory, a final acknowledgement between man and beast. Then it vanished into the wild, the grass closing behind it. Elias stood alone beside the empty well, rope trailing at his feet. The land around him stirred with life again. The buzz of insects, the rustle of leaves, the distant calls of birds returning to their morning songs. Yet within him lingered a silence too profound to break. When he finally turned for home, his steps were heavy with exhaustion but light with something he could not name. He carried no trophy, no proof of what had happened, only the memory of amber eyes and the quiet gift of trust. In the days that followed, neighbors would hear his story with disbelief. Some would shake their heads, others would call it impossible. But Elias knew the truth. He had looked into the eyes of a lion and seen not rage, not hunger, but a plea. And he had answered it. That morning, by an old forgotten well, the wild had bent its head to mercy. And what the lion left behind was not fear, but a memory so powerful it left everyone who heard it speechless.